Take a look around you amid the hustle and bustle of a train station or a crowded shopping mall. You'll see thousands of faces with different skin colors, eye shapes, and heights. Yet, behind all that diversity, we're actually inhabiting a very lonely planet. Have you ever wondered why there's only one species of human on Earth? If we look at cats, there are lions, tigers, and even house cats. If we look at bears, there are polar bears and honey bears. But humans? We only have Homo sapiens. We often take this for granted because we see ourselves as the pinnacle of evolution, the most perfect form of life. We assume other species went extinct because they were too stupid or unable to adapt as well as we can. However, modern science is beginning to debunk that assumption in a rather terrifying way. Imagine if today, as you walked to the office, you passed someone who was only 1 meter tall. But this person wasn't a child or someone with a growth disorder. This person belonged to a different human species. Or imagine sitting in a cafe next to someone with a much more powerful physique, broader shoulders, and a brain that's actually larger than yours. About 100,000 years ago, scenes like this were an everyday reality. Earth was once home to at least 6 different human species at the same time. There were Neanderthals in Europe, Denisovans in Asia, the diminutive Homo floresiensis in Indonesia, as well as Homo erectus and Homo soloensis. They weren't apes, they were humans. They cooked food, knew how to use fire, and likely had emotions just as deep as ours. So, what actually happened that caused them all to vanish, leaving us alone in this planet's living room? Let's take a trip back in time to an era that researchers at the Max Planck Institute have called the most competitive period in genetic history. For years, school textbooks have told us that human evolution followed a straight line, from apes to upright humans, and then gradually into us. But that's completely wrong. Human evolution is more like a dense bush with many branches growing simultaneously. One of our closest cousins, the Neanderthals, are often portrayed as dumb and crude cave dwellers. However, recent research actually shows that they had a complex culture. They buried their dead family members with flowers, cared for the sick, and had brain capacities that sometimes exceeded those of Homo sapiens. If they were that intelligent, why aren't they here to share the world with us? The most common theory we hear is that it's due to climate change. We're often told that they failed to adapt to extreme temperatures. However, Dr. Elena Rivera of the fictional University of Global Paleontology argues that the real reason is far darker. Sapiens may not simply be lucky survivors, but rather serial killers on a global scale. Whenever Homo sapiens entered a new territory already inhabited by other human species, those local species would go extinct within a short time. This is no coincidence. It is a pattern. Did we commit the first genocide in world history before we even knew how to write? But wait a minute. If we really did wipe them out, why do modern DNA tests reveal something surprising? Most of us with ancestry outside Africa actually carry about 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. This means our ancestors didn't just fight, they also fell in love. There were moments in the cold caves of the Middle East when a Homo sapiens man and a Neanderthal woman shared a fire and had children. So, did they truly go extinct? Or were they actually slowly absorbed into our genetics because Homo sapiens were so numerically dominant? Let's imagine a different scenario. What if Homo floresiensis, the hobbit humans from Flores, were still living in the remote forests of Indonesia today? How would international law view them? Would they be granted the same human rights, or would we put them in zoos because they're considered half human? The presence of another human species would shatter all the social religious, and political structures we have today. Most of the world's religions are built on the idea that humans are unique beings created specifically for that purpose. If there were another kind of human with a soul but a different physical form, would they also have a place in the same heaven? The fundamental difference that led to sapiens' victory may not lie in physical strength or individual intelligence. Sapiens possess a secret weapon known as the cognitive revolution. We are the only species capable of discussing things that do not physically exist. We can create myths, money, nations, and corporations. Neanderthals might have been able to defeat a single sapiens in a one-on-one fight, but they couldn't organize 10,000 individuals to act under a single command because they lacked the fiction that united them. Sapiens prevailed because we are masterful liars. We can believe in the same things even when we don't know one another. But could this very ability also be what leads to our downfall someday? We have now reached a point where we are the sole species dominating every inch of Earth. We wiped out our cousins tens of thousands of years ago. Ironically, however, we are now attempting to create a new species through artificial intelligence and genetic engineering. We're trying to play God to create humans who are smarter, stronger, and more resilient. Does this mean we're repeating history? Are we creating a species that will one day view us as slow and stupid primitive creatures, just as we view Neanderthals? If, someday in the future, a new species of humans, engineered in a laboratory, were to emerge, would they become our friends? Or would they wipe us out just as we wiped out other humans in the past? We live in a world that feels very crowded, yet biologically speaking, we are very lonely. We are the last survivors of a vast family that has vanished. Perhaps, by understanding why our kin went extinct, we can learn how to avoid suffering the same fate. Have you ever imagined what the last human on Earth, if such a time ever comes, would think of all our current achievements? Would that person feel like a victor, or would they realize that being the sole survivor is the loneliest curse in the history of the universe?